Welcome to this edition of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. I'm here talking with my good buddy, Jerome Rerucha. Hello, Jerome.
Hello, Larry. Thanks for having me on. Great to see you.
And how do you, that's out at Reynolds Plantation. That's probably close enough description of where your facility is, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Reynolds Plantation, Georgia, and a big resort, one of the top resort areas, golf resort areas in the country. And so you've been operating there for what, 10 years now?
Yeah, for sure. Probably even, I've lived in this facility here for 8 years now, and I was probably out here 4 or 5 years before that. So time has passed by here, that's for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, what people need to know about, well, one thing as a way of introduction is you probably don't see yourself this way, but from my vantage point, you're probably one of the most informed people in the country in terms of being aware of state-of-the-art therapies, at least, and things that are being done to help people feel better, get healthier, have better lives, more energized, because you've spent a couple of decades probably going around the country speaking to health professionals. And so if anybody's got, you wind up putting on seminars, since you work with the state-of-the-art lasers and other treatments, you've got other state-of-the-art programs you talk with. And by the way, people that are into kinesiology, body movement, muscle testing, that type thing, might understand the importance of the meridians and the acupuncture points and all that. And I deal with a real guru who stopped practicing 20 years ago, but he does it he's just fascinated with the medicine and all the developments, and he has a few patients he kind of plays with, and I'm one of the few that get a chance to have the benefit of his knowledge, which he mainly does just for himself. But he's gotten your laser and he's gotten your book, and he sat through that video training program on the book and all the meridians and all last weekend. And he said, my neck, after I was sitting for hours, he said, I had to go to Pilates the next day, and they kind of unfolded me out of the chair. But that's how fascinating this is. And he who has been in this stuff for like 50 years, he says your stuff is the most accurate and insightful and useful of all time. And by the way, he wants me to pass on a note to you: Vol Acupuncture Manual. VOLL. He said it would be a great thing if you got the Vol Acupuncture Manual and found stuff in there that you find useful that could, let people know about it, So,
well, anyway, I will definitely look at that, and those are appreciative. So I know as we get into this, and your whole background of searching and how can you build success in yourself, how can you build success in others, and sometimes it seems like a little minuscule lead, but even like what you just shared with me, especially from the source it came from, being yourself.
Right.
And then the person with 50 years of experience, I write that down. I'm definitely going to purchase that, and I know I'll get something out of it. On top of how it integrates what we do. And that's just, I know, going to kind of set the stage with what we're going to do today. We'll probably go back further from the beginning, but it's just those little things add up to big things in time, is how you're connecting the dots.
Well, this is all, we're talking about winning, but I want people to know the respect that you have in the industry, in the medical and the rehab and the therapy industry, and especially being the expert on laser therapy, which is, for a long time has been one of the fastest growing, hottest treatments, and it's getting more and more developed and more things you can do. And so, you're the guy. And so I just wanted people to know it's a privilege to have you on. And, you're like me, you don't look like much, but you,
Yeah.
you got
Do the best with what you have.
You got a lot of mileage, and you've got a lot of information you're carrying around on those shoulders. And so let's talk about, we'll get into all the different therapies. I know for right now, your business, people can reach you at Performance Chiropractic and Wellness is kind of a name of one of your businesses, but you're a lecturer for Erconia Laser Healthcare, which is basically the Rolls Royce of lasers. And you've created, a long time ago, you created the fitness integration technique, and you've put me through that about 10 years ago to kind of get me turned around after my accident. And I thank you for that. That made a big difference, and continuing impact. We still talk, and you still talk to different people on my staff and family, and so the other thing is you've come up with something you're excited about that kind of integrates everything together, which is a nutrition app, I guess. Would you say that? Food, nutrition science app?
It is, and it's specific for professionals, so a little different than just a food logging app. Obviously, the client would have that, but it's taking it a whole nother step of incorporating a medical grade bioimpedance machine, and of course, whatever other exams and lab testing the clinician or coach decides to do. And that data determining body compositions and what's your live metabolic needs, and then what's the weight you're carrying around that's really doing nothing for you. So you've got active tissue and inactive tissue. So we start with a whole reference plot based upon the scanner that feeds directly into this coaching portal that we created, and the computer's pretty smart. So people that have done this a lot longer than I have, who really understand the science of food, and they put it to the test at a competitive level. And it's kind of been everybody's secret sauce. But since we live in the technology and information age, we had some people that really did it for years the long way on paper, and it just what's up here. And we created a technology system to help other people. You can really do this for a career now, in terms of how the scanner, the coaching portal, and then the client app all work together, and you get so much information, but you get to assess it and create solutions in a fraction of the time.
Yeah, you were telling me that, like, if you're somebody who coaches people on diet and training, well, first of all, this is what the elite do, and this is a way of training an army of clinicians who can go out and make what the professional sports teams, the elite PGA athletes, the people who have their own dietitians follow them around, and they have these incredible bodies, like even in golf, you see it, but tennis, golf, individual sports, team sports, you're looking for that advantage, especially in kickboxing, the MMA, and so sports, all of these, college sports is what I meant to say there, but all of these people now, you can't be sloppy, you can't eat a bunch of donuts and show up. They were talking about Dennis Rodman. Shaquille O'Neal just announced that in an interview, he said, of all the years he played in all the teams, he said the worst teammate he ever had was Dennis Rodman. But he said, unfortunately, he was that good, but he said he said we all had to be there at least an hour before the game. You had to, eat right, do this, that, the other. He said Rodman would show up with a bunch of chicken and rice 15 minutes before the game. He said a huge pile of it, shoveling it in. he'd jump into his clothes and he'd go out in the court and he'd grab 15 to 20 rebounds. So what are you going to say to him? You know?
Yeah, that's it. That may be a little bit of an anomaly, but yeah, also even to get to that point, he worked extremely hard. I mean, he was a garbage man in basketball for a long time, huge effort. And yeah, he worked at his craft for so long in a specialty. He wasn't a scorer. He was no five-star athlete when he was up and coming, played at a small school, even though his pro career, most people definitely remember him for that and his extraordinary activities and attitude. But prior to that, there was a huge development phase where he worked extremely hard. And he was a garbage man in terms of he did not take the leading role on teams, but he was willing to do the hard work.
Yeah. And so as one thing that I want to do get a couple of things shoehorned in here to our first little section that kind of perspective. Number one, your exposure through health and through training. I mean, you're the expert who shows up, you know, so everybody pays attention. Everybody wants to impress you and they tell you everything they're doing, you know, and want to get your opinion on it and all. But you're also around elite athletes. And so not only do you have the experience of, lifetime of spending a high percentage of your time around super successful, high achieving, gung-ho people, also in the terms of, in their business thing, but also in performance, people looking for that little edge and everything. And that's got to rub off on you. I know that's right up your alley. And if we had time, we would get it on remote and I'd have you go down and show everybody. As big as that room is there, you've got your own personal gym downstairs.
Yeah.
With a little bit of absolutely everything down there. And, and everything you do, I mean, is like quicker, bigger, faster, better. Like you were talking earlier, it's just like, even, it's like, you don't want to have fat in a company. You don't have fat on your body because it's kind of like you're carrying weight that is not contributing, to productivity. So it's like, why do we have that? It's like, if we're going to carry this weight around, and like even 10 pounds, if you say, well, I'm only 10 pounds overweight, pick up a 10-pound weight and stick that in your backpack and carry that around all day long and see what it is. So it's frightening how much stress, and you just get used to it, take it for granted. But when you clean that off, my older cousin, who was a doctor, he said, all you got to do to make anybody feel like $1 million is have them lose 5 pounds. He said, it is. Anybody loses 5 pounds, they feel like $1 million, And the thing that so you've got that exposure around top athletes, but also around even the people who come and sit in your room are high achieving, gung-ho people. And so you pick up stuff from that. And one of the things that you picked up is like your app, that you can't just come up, put your name on it. You can't just come up with something. But like this app that you've got for nutrition, you're telling me somebody who's in the business works 40 hours a week. They've got maybe 20 clients they can keep up with without running ragged. And that's just writing it down themselves,
Yeah.
And I've told you about this before. It reminds me of the same cousin I've told you about, where he came up with a way to computerize the intake on physicals. And he told me one time, come in, when I went into his office, he said, come over here. He said, sit down. And he put me through it was like 2-3 minutes. And, check my heart, check the pulse, check this, check that, this, that, the other. He said, that would have taken 45 minutes in the traditional way of writing things down. He said, I just gave you a better physical. It'll be better documented because it's on the computer than it would have been if I took 45 minutes and done it the old way. And so that's why he was excited about that new game plan. So what you're seeing the same results is you can go in, and you were telling me somebody could maybe do 20 clients in a week to now get up to as many as 300 clients in 20 hours a week. For those of you who are sick and tired of fooling around and are dead serious about wanting to move up fast, I've got something especially for you. I've combined the best insights from over 40 years in business and making $70 million in income and compressed them into a free webinar. That's right, it's a free resource. If you want to find out exactly what the concepts are that I use in coaching million-dollar earners, register now at weidelonwinning.com. You'll discover the 5-part framework used by so many to reach their financial, personal, and professional goals. You can find that link in this episode's show notes.
Yeah, we do. We have coaches that we've trained that those are real numbers. It's not hypothetical. So that was the intention. And to be clear, even though I've done some very unique, innovative things on my own, the food app kind of came about because of all the work I was doing for the last 30 years that led me up to that. And I met a person who he's the one that started it. And we got introduced by a mutual friend. And I knew this person a lot longer. It was just kind of a first introduction that the person behind the app originally who started it ran into him. And just off the top of his head, he was like, you got to meet this guy. You two would get along great. And so we did meet each other. And it was just kind of based upon my 3-dimensional thinking and all the unique things we have done in other industries. I was very interested in this topic. We've always done a lot with lab testing, clinical nutrition. Of course, originally, before I was a clinician, I was a full-time strength coach and competitive strength athlete. So you can only lift so many weights and you can only train your mind so many times, and at some point you got to start eating better, and it becomes a separator from the next level that you're trying to achieve. So that's ultimately how I did get into it, but it was a real pairing of philosophy, people who are willing to do the work, what it takes to get a starter project like that going. But I can't take full credit for that one.
Oh, go ahead. We don't. It reminds me of the guy that Schultz, I think is Dr. Schultz, who does MedCram. I don't know if you're familiar with MedCram, but they're the biggest medical training thing on the internet. And he started doing that because one of his students came up and said, you ought to make videos.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to do that. Well, I'll show you.
Yeah, it is. It's just you make things out of necessity.
People, if people come to you with an idea, let them help you. And so don't tell them where it could go. But one thing, and again, as introduction, in terms of you knowing what you're talking about, and people should pay attention to you, when you first went to Reynolds Plantation and started going into this gym, you trained a few people, in the few days a week you were in town, and you had this group you put together of ladies over 70. Talk about how that, all of a sudden you have these ladies over 70 years old and they're breaking all of the weightlifting records. And talk about that.
Yeah. So a little bit of my background, I was nothing special, no physical specimen. I mean, where I grew up in, there was a switch in high school, going into my senior year. I was one of the smallest, weakest people in the school. That's including females. And just kind of a switch turned on. I always wanted to do it. I just wasn't really allowed to do it. And so I always kind of have that, even though I've been around professional athletes and people really gifted, that was not me. And so I can connect really well. I'm always looking for potential. So I never had this incredible mentor. Obviously, there were some people, I didn't figure it all out on my own, but you're always looking, how can I do things better? Because you had to, from originally where you started. So I knew what my background was and how I was able to really focus, bring intensity, learn techniques, not just show up. So when I moved to this town, I've trained a lot of people over the years. And we did. So just regular clients that come to you, very regular, not fitness oriented people, but who have certain clinical problems, and they themselves have been limited in life because of a chronic shoulder or back pain, just all sorts of things, some visceral disease that has a certain diagnosis. Yeah, we've kind of built a team of people who hold numerous state records. And in Georgia, that's a pretty big deal. Georgia is a very, very competitive state always. So if you win the state of Georgia, it would be very rare you're not ranked 5th or higher in the country. And even if you win the state of Georgia, probably a third of those people are going to be ranked number 1 in the country. So it's been here a long time. And yeah, we've tapped in to a group of people, and they really support each other. So we've got a few world champions, numerous world records, national records.
How old are these people now?
The oldest one we have right now, she's almost 75. She's won worlds twice, and she didn't even start lifting till 68. She had chronic pain her entire life, and she could never lift and work out. She always wanted to. She always just kind of had that drive, and she was trying to do some things in the gym locally here, and my motorcycle buddy was in the gym with her, and I train in the middle of nowhere, as you know, so I wasn't in the public gym at this time. And he's like, well, there's this guy here who'd probably be able to help you. And so he referred her in, and she just kind of told me her goals. And it's like one step at a time. She was really fighting this one particular injury, literally since she was a teenager, and she's 68 now at this point. You name it, who tried to help her with it. So again, just kind of put together a whole 3-dimensional exam. It really wasn't very difficult to fix when you can look at it 3-dimensionally. And she just kind of took off. And so we took over all her training. You know, I told her at that time, it's like, okay, all your clinicians are fired. All your trainers are, like, everybody you're working with are fired, and we're going to take over your care. And I'm going to teach you every set, every technique. We'll write your programs. We're going to take care of you chiropractically, soft tissue, all those things. I mean, that monster was inside her all the time. We were just able to untap it.
Yeah. And so not only got some Georgia, got them out lifting and everything, but winning state records and, you know, United States records and even world records, you know? So
yeah,
you have a background of success in not only yourself, because you were the power lifter at one time. And what was your record, by the way?
I would squat low to mid 7s, deadlift, you know, around that, just over 700, and bench around 5.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive for the weakest guy in the school. So pretty good progress.
Yeah.
But it been able to pass it on. You know, sometimes when you are the one who learned last or developed last, you understand it better because you were thinking about how to make it work harder and longer than everybody else. So that makes you, it does tend to make you into a better trainer than someone who everything came easy, because then you're impatient with everybody. What is it with you? You know, I told you how to do it. Come on. Yeah. And so that probably had a lot to do with you being able to communicate these things and pass them along. And so I'm going to wrap up this first segment with a saying I've heard you use: general consistency wins every time, something along that line. What is that?
There's kind of the cliche of hard work pays off, but you just got to be consistent and reevaluate yourself and be honest with yourself. Like, you don't want to tear yourself down, but sometimes there is that just honest opinion. It's like, wow, I'm super fat and out of shape. But even if you want to be driven to be healthy and in shape, you just got to accept where you're at. Don't be satisfied where you're at, but just accept it. And that's your launch point. So, you know, so pretty big foundational disasters could be the foundation of huge success for people. You know, you need that start. Don't lie to yourself and move forward.
Yeah. And a good start makes the rest of it not easy, but it really allows you to make significant progress quicker, which kind of fuels the flame, don't you think?
Yeah. And, you know, like anything, depending where this conversation goes, you know, things were not easy. It wasn't like, even when I decided to really crossed that line where I was really consistent in the weight room and really driven to do those types of things. I mean, everybody was trying to tear you down. There was nobody that was saying, oh, good job, keep it up. I mean, the friends you had at that time before, I can't even tell you how many times I heard when you didn't do the things you normally did, it's like, oh, I can't go do that. I'm going to go lift. And they're like, why do you do that? Like, I don't even lift and I'm a lot stronger than you. And, you hear that stuff all the time. And you just kind of, when all of a sudden everything aligns, you're like, yeah, but that's not going to last very long.
Right.
That's literally just what you felt. You knew you were really in that right direction. And, where I was at that time was not necessarily where I was going to be in 6 months or a year from that time. I knew that. So.
All right. Thanks so much, Jerome. Looking forward to digging into that. Thanks for listening to the Million Dollar Mastermind. If you felt there were any valuable takeaways from this episode, please take a minute and leave us a 5-star review. Your feedback is important and really helps us get the word out to a wider audience. Remember, we have a valuable webinar that is absolutely free. Register for it right now at weidelonwinning.com. Thanks for listening.